Welcome to the 24K Life podcast. I'm your host, Derick Gant. You know what? This is the space where you dive in to figure out how to elevate your life. You know, the 24K Life is all about how you elevate mentally, physically, financially, spiritually, and in your relationships. Now, I don't purport to know all things. I am really the money guy. And in that light, because we are the ambassadors of the 24K Life, we like to bring you amazing individuals with incredible experiences, tools, techniques, services, ideas, and concepts that will help you to elevate. You know, 24K is about living your life unconditionally on terms that satisfy you at the highest level. That simply means not answering to anyone because you know who you are, where you're going, what you're willing to do, and you have become a self-master. Today, we have a really unique guest, and you have to forgive me up front if I act a little funny, but his story is such that it's just fucking touching. I have a brother, I have a sister, and he's going to dive into some things that really, if you have loved ones, he's going to touch your heart, and he's going to help you figure out how to get past that, how to elevate through that, because that is 24K. We have Thomas Brown. What's up, my man?
Hey, Derick, how you doing? Thank you so much for having me on your show to get to share my story with your audience. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, bro. Let me tell you, you ask a question, and I'm going to give you an answer. Dude, seriously, no shit, Sherlock. I had a mini stroke 3 days ago.
What?
So when you ask me how I'm doing, I am fucking fantastic.
Wow. All right, man. That's crazy.
Dude, it's crazy. And what makes it crazier is that my security camera caught it on video. And I showed it to the doctors. Were like, what happened? And I showed it to them. And they were like, you've got to be kidding me. Dropped like I was jumping rope in my own driveway. I live alone. All that was scary. Luckily, I had my Apple Watch on. It called 911, which I didn't even know it could do. It said, I did the guy thing, man. It said, it looks like you're in trouble. Are you okay? And I looked at the watch and was like, my left leg was numb. My right arm was almost numb. And I'm like, I'm going to be able to shake this off. I come from the school to shake it off. Right. And I'm like, and I almost hit yes. And thank God I hit no. Paramedics came, they swooped me up, couldn't walk, couldn't stand up. My speech was slurred. So needless to say, you're the first person publicly to ask me how I'm doing. I'm sharing that only not to put any light on me, but to put some light on the fact that we all have issues, and you have to be fit. I'm back because of my fitness level. I'm back because of my focus and because the good Lord allowed it. But let's talk about you, man. Tell us about you have a great book. We're going to talk about the book, but tell us about your journey to the work that you're doing.
Well, first of all, I'm glad you're okay. And there's a few things that you touched on that I think will resonate that translates to my story as well. First of all, like having an experience like that shifts your perspective, shifts your awareness, shows you hopefully brings you more into the moment and being mindful of your situation. And on another perspective is of like what I call the dude brood. Men have a tendency to only express two types of emotions on the vast spectrum of emotion. And
can I guess what they are?
Go for it.
I'm hungry and I'm horny.
Well, pretty close. So maybe 4, but I would say like joy, food and sex brings joy. Okay. And then like anger, like which is like more of a disappointment. But there's so much more. And I think it's really important that that men are more expressive, or find positive ways to express the spectrum, all the emotions on the spectrum. I think it's really, really important for us. And I do know this. I use this. I think people that are in the wellness space don't really understand the privilege that comes with being able to put yourself in a space of thriving and not just surviving. Because there's a lot of people in this world. There's a lot of people in our country that are in survival mode. And I think that we need to be mindful of the fact that to be in the space that you and I are, we are extremely privileged to be here. There might have been a massive struggle to get to where we're at, and that's part of the journey. But it's still like once we are able to crest out of that survival mode, it is you are activating, you are operating from a place of privilege. So
you said something that really, really makes great sense when you put it together. It's like people are in survival mode, and that's why they're afraid, and their fear makes them act out in the craziest ways as far as the way we treat each other, the way we connect or don't connect with each other, the way we hate each other. I mean, you're so right. If more people were thriving, we would have a lot less bullshit.
Yeah, and like when somebody's operating in a survival mode, it could be a wide variety of things. It could be because they haven't processed a trauma, or it could be and that trauma could be their socioeconomic status. I work when I'm not promoting my book and I'm not writing, I work at a library, which is good for an author, a good place for an author to make their living at while they're trying to pursue, their method while they're trying to move to their pursuit of happiness.
Right.
But like working at the library, we deal with a large portion of our patrons are homeless people that, especially here in Phoenix, Arizona, it's the only place, libraries are the only place in our society that all are welcome without the expectation of buying stuff.
That's true.
So in a place like Arizona in the summertime, it is a refuge for so many people in our society. So all that being said, like what is my journey and how does that mix in with all of that? I would say that I'm a mental health activist or advocate. And I like to promote mental health through the journey of self-awareness. That's my area of expertise. And the thing about self-awareness and saying that you're an expert at it is that you can only truly be an expert at your journey. Self-awareness is a personal experience. It is a personal journey for everyone. What works for me does not work for you. But I think self-awareness is the only game in town. If you don't know who you are, you don't know where you want to go. And if you don't know where you want to go and you don't know who you are, you're going to have an entire world telling you who you are, what you should be, and where you should be going. And when you start living a life based on other people's opinions, based on other people's values, you are going against your nature. And when you go against your nature, that's a mixture of catastrophe for your mental state.
Yeah, but man, and I say you use the word but, and it's not really a but, it's in addition to, we're groomed, and people need to understand this, and we're saying the same language, right? I say self-mastery, you say self-awareness, same difference.
Totally.
But the reality is that we're groomed for it. When you go to school in grade school and they make you sit in a row and they make you raise your hand and they tell you, nope, that's not right, this is right. Oh, I think this, well, this is a better thought. And, we're just groomed to fall into place. And so the journey of self-mastery is a solo journey because you got to be willing to step outside the norm, right? You got to be willing to step outside the norm and go, I don't agree with that. I'm not going to accept that. And those are the kids that usually end up in trouble at school.
Yeah. Oh, that's a thing. Like it's astonishing to me that you find yourself on this journey of self-mastery or self-awareness usually through two avenues. All right. One is you experience some kind of trauma. And it could even be like a bunch of micro traumas, not something that like is a macro, like a massive trauma. It could just be like an entire like childhood and early and teenhood of micro traumas. And so like you find yourself either in therapy to deal with the trauma and process the trauma and process the grief, or you're like, I need a humanities credit in the degree that I'm pursuing. So I guess I'll take this philosophy or Eastern studies class.
Right. Dude, you just gave me an aha, like for real. I'm not even bullshitting, but for real, aha. It's like, I've always felt some kind of way because I've never had this major trauma. And, and I wrote the book about, my book is not, hey, this is what I did and this is how you can do it too, because I agree with you. You can't walk in my shoes. So whatever worked for me probably won't work for you unless certain situations, certain parts of it will. But anyway, I was just thinking about what you were saying, and I'm like, yeah, I had a bunch of little micro bullshit things. Like, like I got a scholarship to play ball, which was amazing, but I didn't get from the school my first choice. I got it from my second choice. I took that as a trauma, like I'm not good enough, or why didn't I? Or even when I played football in college, I got hurt, like majorly hurt, like reconstructed my knee and broke my ankle. A senior classman pushed me because he was pissed because I was catching these long balls on him. He was getting pissed. He's like, "You're on a scout team. You're not supposed to be outshining me." And he pushed me, and I stepped back and broke my ankle. So, and you sit there and you go, "Why me?" That's what led me on my self-discovery. It was like, okay, am I not good enough? Am I not supposed to be this guy? And really weird for a 19-year-old to start this journey, but that's how I started mine. And that's why I rose to the space that I'm at where, I can try to help other people. And I wrote the book and all this stuff. What was yours? You didn't have a micro, you had a macro one.
Yeah, I did have a macro one, but it wasn't until years later that I realized all the micros that I did have in my life.
So you just helped me with my micros, because I wouldn't have even considered that. I didn't consider those traumas until you just said it. I'm like, oh, that's how, okay, all those little things stacked up.
And if you're a fan of story, which hopefully I'll get into a little bit later in this conversation, but some would also call that the inciting incident. The inciting incident, like within the first act of any movie that you watch, you will always see the inciting incident that takes the hero and propels them on their journey. So I would say
that I have studied the cycle of a story, and when I say studied, I shouldn't say studied. I've read about it, heard about it, looked at it before I wrote my book. But I don't remember the inciting incident. I remember that the hero always has a conflict, which is the inciting incident.
That's the inciting incident. So, And in my book, 2012, A Bicycle Odyssey, I use Joseph Campbell's monomyth of the hero's journey, all 17 steps. I break it up into 3 acts, which he has 3 segments, and then 17 steps. And each step is a chapter of my book about my story, which I will now tell.
I'm sure you've heard the news. Financial freedom is within your reach, thanks to Derick Gant. With over 25 years of experience, Derick's 24K life philosophy transforms everyday challenges into stepping stones for success. Imagine mastering your finances, setting and crushing your goals, and shifting your mindset to elite levels. Derick empowers you with tools for financial freedom and measurable results. His strategies are crafted to ensure you live the life you've always dreamed of. From his book to engaging workshops and online content, Derick's insights are designed just for you. Start your journey today and turn your aspirations into achievements. Visit DerickGant.com. It's time to live your 24K life. Are you ready?
So my inciting incident was the loss of my brother Mark to suicide back in 2001. My parents come from a small town in Kansas. For them, I would say it was a simplistic time. And when I say simple time, I refer more to like the level of technology and small town. So they reunited here in Phoenix, Arizona. It was a much bigger town, much more diverse. And of course, as they courted and fell in love and started a family, technology has only started to like really get crazy. So my brother and I we're still from the generation that wasn't raised with the internet. That came my senior year, and by that time my brother was already in college. But because of that simplicity that my parents didn't have an experience of, And I would also say because of the lack of self-awareness, my parents, I love them. They're great people. They put food on the table, clothing on my back, and a roof above my head. And the thing that they taught me in life, I think, is one of the most valuable things that I have in my toolkit, which is that's love, compassion, and definitely compassion for yourself and compassion for others. I think I learned more about compassion for others than the self until much later in life. So my brother kind of like stepped in and became he there he kind of took control of the family. He has a big ego. He was very charming. He was a singer, and he kind of like took up the space that was left from my parents being the wizards and sorcerers that all children, I think, need when they're growing up, whether it's their parents or some other teacher along the way. Right. And I didn't really like that. I didn't like my brother trying to tell me what to do or how to live. My brother was a womanizer. I was a stoner after high school. He didn't like the fact that I smoked weed. I didn't like the fact that he was having sex with one of my friends and my boss and wanted me to participate in his web of lies. I was like, hey man, you do you, let me do me. And he's like, no, if you're not on my team, then we're going to have a problem with it. So my brother and I had like a massive sibling rivalry, one that I didn't even want to participate in. And it wasn't until he lost both the women, and he didn't have a sense of self. He thought what it was to be a man was to, all the conquests that you have on the notches on your belt. He had right. his heart broken when he was a freshman in college, and he vowed that he would never let that happen again. So he just became the abuser, and not physically or anything like that. But when you have two primary girlfriends and then other sexual conquests along the way, that's not healthy. And that's not healthy for yourself if you're the one doing it. It's not healthy for those that are part of that are in your relationship with you. Yeah, and I just didn't want
to. I often wondered how there's certain cultures that have multiple wives, and history in the Bible. King Solomon had 800 wives and concubines. Like, dude.
But everybody's in on it, even now with polyamory.
On that one, everybody's in on. So you're saying the problem. Okay. It's still a problem as far as I'm concerned. It's just too much work.
It totally is. Man, I have hobbies, man. I can only handle one person at a time.
Yeah. So how old were you? Were you 19 and he was older? Is this when you were younger?
So when we started our split, it was right after I graduated from high school. So it was like 18 or 19, and we just didn't get along up until I was about 24. Okay. The women left him. He couldn't come out and say that he was depressed and sad for losing the illusion. So he told people he had cancer.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So nobody's allowed to come with me with a doctor. And my parents, just being terrified that their eldest son is sick, they didn't want to question anything, but I was always skeptical. But even in that time, while he was like, when you have a relationship with two women for 10 years, you're a pretty masterful storyteller.
Obviously. For 10 years?
Yeah. So, but at the one thing that I did appreciate about that time is that we started to rebuild our bridge.
Okay.
And we had a lot of time. I remember I got my brother stoned one night, and we watched Empire Strikes Back, and he's like, "Oh my God, I feel like I saw that movie for the first time." Like he was just, his mind was just blown. So, but it was also like nice that I was able to share something with him that he was demonizing for a long time.
Okay.
So once my brother died, like it just rocked my family. My parents were devastated. My mom's not with us anymore, but like for my dad, I don't think he's ever really truly recovered. And
I can't. Those are the type of things I don't even like. I have two boys. I just things I don't like imagining because that would be, oh my God. Wow.
Yeah. So like it brought the three of us together, and we became much tighter, and we were much more communicative, but they still weren't. And there was the love that was there, but I was still very, very much lost. And it wasn't until, so this happened in 2001, say like around 2007, 2008, I find myself realizing that like I'm depressed. I've always been open with my emotions and say like, hey, I'm sad, and I would be expressive with it with my friends, but I could never come out and say like, yeah, I'm depressed and I need help. I need more help than what you guys can provide, because we're all fucked up and we don't have any tools in our toolbox to manage that. So I finally found myself in Kim Evans' office, and she put me through the ringer. She helped me not just peel my onion, but like just tear it apart.
Right.
And
so what do you and I know we're not at that point yet, but I got to do it because I just think it's so vital while we're on the topic. What do you think specifically with men not wanting help or not needing help or not wanting to express themselves? How did you identify that point, that bridge between I'm sad, you guys can't help me, and that turned into I'm depressed? Like, because I think most men, we just get
great
up
question.
and go. So like, what's that point that you go, oh shit, I really can't get through this by myself?
So I would say that a lot of the friends that I did have in my late teens and early 20s, even though we were boys and we shared things with each other, we were all very toxic. We did, you know, we a lot of drugs, non-mind expanding drugs. I'm an advocate of psychedelics when used in therapeutic environments with a therapist. But like my friends and I, we were just toxic. So as I was kind of like breaking away from them, I started dating a woman, and it was just as toxic. And when I had more of my heart and the stake of it, being a compassionate person, I have a thing for the bad girls. As many women like the bad boys, I like the bad girls for the longest time.
Right.
And she just shattered my heart, and I just couldn't recover from it. It was very emotionally abusive, mentally abusive, and it was just devastating. I was like, I need to get away from this. Why was I with my friends? Why did I hang out with my friends for so long and continue those abusive behaviors and patterns? And why was I doing it with this woman? And I had enough. My ego was finally broken, and I submitted, and I knew that I needed help. I did not want to end up like my brother. I did not want to take that path. So I had that example to deviate from. And I'm thankful, because that was where I learned. It was in therapy that I learned about all my micro traumas that were just like the dynamics of the family, like the unhealthiness of my brother taking over the family, my parents being submissive, and all of that. And then seeing the way that that kind of like worked in the way that I related to other people and the relations that I had with my friends, and then with the women that I was choosing to date and be intimate with.
So yours was layered, sounds like. So you had the micro, you had the macro with your brother, and another macro with the relationship, and finally you were okay.
Yeah.
What about your brother? Do you all understand what led him? Was it the loss of the two women that crushed his identity? I mean, because it seems to me I might be able to handle a little better if I knew why it went down versus not really knowing why he took his life.
I think that if you're not honest with yourself, if you're not honest, if you don't have an clear understanding of your true nature, and you don't find or create a purpose that is yours alone, that you get to explore yourself through, it's easy to lose yourself. Yeah. And in order to sell a lie, one must believe as much as they can about the lie.
Right. Is this from Kim? Did you get this from Kim?
I think I always knew it. She just helped me put words to it.
I love it. I love it.
You know what I mean? So
yeah, I did the same thing, bro. I got to a point where, I even write about this in my book. Like, hey, Black men don't go to therapy. So
yeah.
So I wrote about it in my book about what got me to therapy and the stigmas and all those type of things. And then once I actually went and started to get better and talk to some of my friends, they had the same misnomer and was able to help them like kind of squash that silliness. But so I understand where you are. I understand how you got there. You clearly identified, sadness, the depression, atrium. So I guess my question right now is, since did you say 08, 07? Is that what you said?
So he died in 2001, and then I got into therapy. I got into therapy in 2008.
Yeah, so 08. Yes, I'm in 07, 08. So since 07, 08, you've become so self-aware that you wrote a book.
Yeah.
You already shared everybody what the name of the book is. It is 2012 Bicycle Odyssey, 7,000-mile bicycle journey and healing power of art.
For suicide awareness and the healing power of art.
For suicide awareness and the healing of art. So tell us about this bicycle journey, man.
You need to watch this if you struggle with feeling stuck in life. I'll show you how to get the best version of yourself with the 24K Life Code. The 24K Life Code by Derick Gant isn't just a book, it's your blueprint to extraordinary living. Imagine understanding yourself so deeply that your goals, strengths, and passions become crystal clear. That's the power of. But knowing isn't enough. The next step? It's about turning those insights into deliberate moves that lead you to success. And guess what? It's not as hard as you think. Now let's talk mindset and replaces limiting beliefs with a focus on growth and prosperity. It's about seeing opportunities, not obstacles. Finally, we have. Align your daily activities with your true values and watch your life transform. The 24K Life Code is your map to financial stability and a life filled with purpose and abundance. Ready to live unapologetically and authentically? Your greatness awaits.
And I want to know.
So that was interesting too. So a buddy of this guy that I met, I was working at this. My brother and I worked in a park and recreation in a local municipality here in the Phoenix area, and I started working at the park that he worked at when he died. And so like around 2009, late 2009, the fall of 2009, I'm looking for purpose in my life. I'm finally broke up with. I was finally away from that horrible relationship, and in comes this guy, Zach, who's covering a shift. And Zach and I kind of knew each other, but we never worked with each other. And we took a shine to one another. And we talked about music. We talked about art. We talked about books. We just really like enjoyed each other. Fast forward a couple months, we decide to like meet up and hang out at this coffee shop and just talk. And when I show up to the coffee shop, Zach is reading book 3 of the Ishmael trilogy by Daniel Quinn. And I was on book 2, The Story of B. And I was just like, okay, so I'm reading this book. And we just had that to start with. And he had known that I've been going through stuff, and he was just now going through things. So he asked me about my journey. Once we talked about Daniel Quinn, we talked about my journey. And I told him about my brother's suicide, how that kind of like, opened me up, and it took me a few years to get into therapy, but that was like the inciting incident. Later that night, Zach revealed to me that he also lost his brother to suicide. And then a couple days later, I asked Zach, like, hey, dude, what's your birthday? Zach has the same birthday as my brother. So I just felt from the fact that we were reading the same books. And the big thing about Daniel Quinn is that he's about story. What is your story? What is your family story? What is your religious story, your national story, your species story? And does that resonate with your nature as an individual? So he's really about knowing your story. So I just felt like there was something to Zach and I that was like well beyond drinking beer, playing basketball, and chasing babes, the 3 B's, the 3 B's, you know what I mean? There was something more. I just didn't know what it was. And I had this nagging feeling. Fast forward about 6 months, I am dating a woman who is also one of her gigs is that she does pinup modeling for an alternative form of beauty, the organization known as Suicide Girls. So I dubbed Zach and this woman my suicide friends. Zach being somebody who has a similar experience, and then this woman who's just, pierced, tattoos, colored hair, like that's part of like the suicide girl, like, the expression of like an alternative form to beauty. So I was, she asked me if I would do a photo shoot of like this community organized, like they had this community party for Phoenix suicide girls. And I went and I hung out for a while. I was taking pictures. I called Zach. I was like, hey man, I'm tired of hiding behind my camera. Come hang out. Like, I'm letting her do her thing with like the other girls and stuff like that. So he comes and he hangs out. And so I just start going off on a rant. And in 2000, I tell him about this adventure that I went on in 2006. In 2006, I am not a Christian, but I needed to shake things up in my life. My parents were going to a very progressive church, and they were going to walk from Phoenix to Washington, D.C. So I was like, I'm going to go along with these Christians. And I helped out with the documentary while I walked with them from Phoenix to Washington, D.C. And I told Zach that I really wanted to do something like that again, that I needed to like shake things up in my life. And he's like, well, I would do that, but let's ride bicycles instead. I'm like, yeah, you can go to more, you can be out on the road longer, go to more places, cover more ground on a bike than by foot. Like, yeah, let's do it. And he's all like, I was like, what? He's like, what do you think about doing it for our brothers? Let's do it to honor our friendship and to honor our brothers. I was like, that's a brilliant idea. So another thing of like, a cosmic giggle, as Terrence McKenna would say, or, some kind of like synchronicity that two suicide loss survivors discuss going on a cross-country adventure for suicide awareness while at a suicide girls community party. There was just all these things. I was like, it just felt like the universe was like smacking me in the back of the head and being like, this is it, dude.
Right.
Go. So by the time from that point, we kind of talked about it for a few more months. And then in February of 2011, we made the decision, we're going to do this, but we needed a plan. So it took us 13 months to organize the routes, raise some money, put a website together, make sure that we had communities to talk to. And we just created a route that is a giant W through the country, going through 21 states, where we spoke with people who lost loved ones to suicide. We spoke with therapists, mental health activists, lawmakers, law enforcement, just about suicide. And I think by the time we started, I was already in the mode of acceptance. Like, this was my life. This is what happened. I want to learn as much as I can about other people's experience. Like, how did you navigate your trauma? What tools did you use to navigate your trauma? How long did it take? For me, it seemed like forever before I finally admitted that I needed help.
Right.
And for some people, it's, it was 20 years before they got help. But like with the advancements in the community of lost survivors, thankfully now there's some people where they lose somebody on a Monday and they're in a group on a Thursday. They find a group. So we're able to shut the time down, like close the gap of trauma and recovery. And there's this one guy, Dr. Frank Campbell. We met him in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He's a suicidologist and thanatologist. So he has a doctorate in the study of death and suicide. He often would quote one of his mentors saying that postvention is prevention for the next generation, which means that like if it happened to you and you're able to get in there and like talk and find people in a community to talk about it, you can, finally you're preventing yourself from like dealing with that, from experiencing that yourself. So it was really like important for us. I think me being a fan of mythology and storytelling and metaphor, where we started and where we ended was very important to me. So we started at the northern edge of the Golden Gate Bridge, and unfortunately, as beautiful and as magnificent as that bridge is, a lot of people have lost their lives by going there and jumping off intentionally. There's a documentary called The Bridge about the Golden Gate and all the people that have died by suicide there. So to us, that was like a symbol, even though it's more than that to the rest of the world. To us, it was a symbol of death.
Right.
And so I wanted to end at this art retreat center in upstate New York, the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors, run by Alex and Allison Gray. Alex wrote a book called The Power of Art, and he is a big believer. And I share this belief that art and creativity are some of our greatest tools, not only for self-awareness, but for healing. That as an artist, when you create something, you are taking yourself through a healing process, not only of the mind, but of the body. And as an audience, you are when you're witnessing art, whether it's music, a movie, poetry, reading a book, looking at a painting or watching somebody paint, that you are in the process of being part of something of healing both the body and the mind. Right. And so we wanted to end our bike ride at a place that to us symbolized transcendence, evolution, moving beyond. So that's why we picked where we began and where we ended. And to me, I feel that part of my journey of self-awareness, self-discovery, is self-acceptance, self-compassion, is through creativity. Right. And writing this book, I've always wanted to write. I was in film school before I left to do the bike ride. Like, I'm not done writing. 2012, A Bicycle Odyssey. I think if you love movies or you love music, you're going to find something in this book. If you love storytelling, if you love mythology, you're going to find something in this book. If you've lost someone to suicide, you're going to find something in this book. If you like to travel, especially in interesting ways that don't, that don't use train, plane, or automobile, you're going to find something in this book. It's part myth, it's part trauma recovery, and it's part beatnik life on the road.
So I gotta ask, bro, when's the movie coming out? I know you did footage, especially if you videoed the walk with your parents. So when's the movie coming out, man?
So I did have an intention to shoot a documentary. And it just became too much for me as being somebody that I'm riding the bikes. Riding the bike would be the safe space, because like a lot of times, like, oh, we got like 60 miles to do today, and then we have to go talk to like a room full of like people. It could be 8 people, could be 20 people, it could be 100 people, and we're all going to have sad stories for the next 3 hours to discuss. Right. So it just became too heavy, but I still continued to shoot. I got a lot of footage of places that we were at. I got a lot of interviews with different people, activists, therapists, people who lost loved ones to suicide. Right. So I used that footage to kind of like jog my memory while writing this book. Man, if it wasn't a documentary, even though I'm a Star Wars nerd, I'm a Marvel nerd. My favorite movie of all time is Pink Floyd, The Wall. Okay. And I think if this story was turned into a movie, it would have to be partly animated. And if you read the book, you're gonna know why. Right. There's like,
well, I am going to order it. I'm going to go to www.risephoenix.org, and I am going to order the 2012 Bicycle Odyssey. It sounds amazing, bro. It's an incredible story. When I introduced you, I said it was going to be touching, and it was way more touching than I could have imagined. No, I'm being serious. It's crazy, man. I love your spirit, though. The way you deliver it doesn't lead you down this dark path of sadness. I mean, it's obviously have some jubilation to go read this book and experience, what you experienced. Now, did you write the book, or you and Zach wrote the book together?
I wrote it. I wrote the whole thing. And if you knew what draft it is you read, you'd be astonished. It took a lot of time, a lot of patience, a lot of love, and a lot of like, my favorite quote about writing is from Taika Waititi, is like, sometimes writing is opening your laptop, staring at an empty page for 8 hours, and then closing it and crying. Right. And that's totally what writing is. I would like to like just share one more idea with your audience, and I think it's really important.
Are you ready to live life on your terms? The 24K Life mobile app is here to help you unlock your full potential, break through limitations, and create the life you deserve. Whether it's mastering your finances, achieving your goals, or leveling up in every area of life, 24K Life has the tools, resources, and support you need to succeed. And this Memorial Day, we're giving you a special gift. Download the app now and enjoy exclusive discounts on our premium features. Don't miss out. This offer won't last long. Start living your 24K life today. Because greatness is within you. Available on the App Store and Google Play.
And is that if you are able to take the time, if you're privileged enough in your journey, if you suffer a trauma, if you're able to take the time and remove yourself from that, from having to label it a good or bad experience, you'll find that everything is just experience, and it's up to us to like know what the lesson is or learn what the lesson is. And one of my biggest
how do you do that?
Well, I mean, you have to honor the feeling. You can't suppress it. You have to honor the feeling. You have to let yourself.
I know how to do it, but I want you to explain, because that's a hard thing for people to wrap their minds around. You're asking them to extract themselves and look at something in like the third person.
Well, a lot of people do this all the time when they suffer, when they experience something that's heartbreaking. That question that rattles around in their head is, why? Why did this happen to me? You just have to reframe that question.
Mm-hmm.
Not why did this happen to me? What do I do with this now? That's the most important. It's just reframing the question. And like anything else, some people are born with an innate athletic ability. Some people are born with an innate creative ability.
Right.
Some people are born with a great innate understanding of self.
Mm-hmm.
But like everything else, if you're not athletic, if you work hard, you can cultivate talent. If you're not a good artist, you can cultivate talent. If you don't have a strong sense of self-awareness, you can cultivate talent. And I think it's up to you to find out what your meditative practice. To me, it was like just learning how to like focus on my breath and getting in touch with my body, understanding my body. And from that, it started to like, well, now I got to understand my thoughts and like, why do I feel this way about this person? And why does this thing that this person does that isn't bad, why does it annoy the fuck out of me? And just really like start to examine yourself. There's no finish line in the journey of self-awareness.
Yeah,
but like back to the experiencing, one more thing that I think is important to share. And it's a good example of what I'm trying to talk about is that I met my partner at the end of my bike ride.
Oh, so you didn't date the tattooed suicide babe?
Oh, no, that was over. That ended, and I went off. And Sharon Steluto was my contact at for the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors. And every month we would I would send her an email just to let her know, don't forget about us. We're on our way. We're in Oklahoma or we're in Louisiana.
Okay.
But when I got to a few days before we arrived, I always called all my contacts the night before, a few days before, and I have a 5 to 10 minute conversation. I had an hour-long conversation with her. It felt like I was rekindling a relationship with an old friend. You know, I Google stalked her as soon as I got off the phone, and she's just as pretty as the sound of her voice. And so now she lives with me for like 12 years later in Phoenix, and I met her 3,000 miles away. How do I meet this woman that has become my life partner if my brother doesn't die by suicide? If my brother doesn't die by suicide, I don't make that connection with Zach. We don't ride our bike cross country for suicide awareness. So just understand, when you're having an experience and you take yourself on this journey of self-discovery, when you have an experience and your ego needs to label it as good or bad, when you have the time to be able to ask that question in a bad experience, what do I do with this now? That like you'll come to find that a negative experience can lead you down a path to a great experience. Yeah. Just like a great experience can lead you down a path of a negative experience. Yeah. But it's all experience. They're all lessons provided to us by whatever you want to call it, God or the universe. Mm-hmm. Or even if it's by chance, it's still a lesson for you and an opportunity for you to learn more about yourself, grow, evolve, and become a better person today than you were yesterday.
So that just walks me right into a question, bro. First of all, let me make a statement. My statement is that you still like bad girls because her last name was Stiletto.
I know Steluto, but
no, I heard Stiletto.
It's close enough. I often say that she saves me. She has saved me from myself.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So, but my question is, you threw out with clarity that you're not a Christian, but do you believe? I mean, based on what you just said today, you've got to believe in a higher power.
There's this world, this universe is far beyond our ability to understand.
Yeah.
So I can never say that there is not some greater power out there on some level, whether it's conscious of us or not, and we are just a byproduct of its existence. I'm a big fan of comic books, and if you know Marvel Comics and you've seen the character Eternity, that's been like a big like that's what if there is a God, that's how I see God incarnate, as this like ethereal being which we all exist and are a part of. So I will never poo-poo it. I will never like look down upon anybody who feels that way.
I just listened to you talk about the Zach scenario, crazy, and then you went to the suicide group, crazy, and then you finish it with a big bang with your partner. I mean, I'm like, okay, that was all orchestrated in some grander.
It's crazy, and like, and all of this could be like, perhaps, I look at like maybe this meat suit is just an avatar that like a different level of my consciousness is in a different place controlling it. But like, I mean, like the comedian Mark Maron goes, if I don't understand it, I'll go mystical.
Yeah, definitely. Well, man, I thoroughly enjoyed our time. I'm touched by it. I was listening to you and thinking, and I'm like, wow, man, there's so many people that can gain so much just from the conversation, let alone to go to your website, to grab the book, and to do some introspection, and to do some outerspection, to step outside of yourself. No, I mean, seriously, is what you said. Step outside of yourself and try not to judge the experience, but look at the experience as it is for itself, and then ask yourself the question, what do I do with this? Great question to ask, especially when you're hurting. I just think it's a great question to ask, and so I thank you for your time. I'm encouraging everyone to go to risephoenix.org, buy the book. It's very encouraging, very enlightening. I can't wait to get it. And when you get finished with that, you can go, show it again, brother. Show it again. Yeah, I like it. So, go grab it. And if you're driving to work, or if you're at the gym and you're just listening to the podcast, when you finish, make yourself a note to go to risephoenix.org. Check out the book. Thomas, thank you so much, brother.
Derick, thank you. This is awesome. This is a great conversation. I really appreciate the opportunity to share my story with you and your audience. So thank you. I'm very grateful.
Absolutely, man. Hang out for a second.
All
right, you all. I was just extremely touched, just like I told you I knew I would be. The energy there was incredible and extremely well connected between the two of us, because that interview just flowed like butter, baby. It flowed so well that I think I came up with the title of the podcast during the interview, which usually doesn't happen until we edit and go through the whole thing. But I'm telling you, man, I'm kind of hooked on beer, basketball, and babes. Navigating to your recovery. I think I'm going to name it that. I don't know yet, but we'll see. But I enjoyed this, and I hope that if you have someone in your life that's struggling, I know that I do, but if you have somebody in your life that's struggling, if you have someone in your life that depends on you to vent, to open up, for that listening ear, for that shoulder to cry on, this levity helps. This might be the thing that helps them transition into a higher place. Maybe it's therapy. Maybe it's figuring out what their creative source is. In any event, I encourage it. I really do. And I know that I'm going to personally take the time to share this interview. We're not going to wait for social media to push it out. I'm personally going to send this out to my tribe, my crew, and the people in my universe, because I believe that this message is a selfless message. He's not telling you to go buy books so he can be a billionaire. If I brought him back on, he would tell you that you don't write books to get rich. You write books because you want to fulfill your destiny, because the average self-published author only sells 250 copies. He has been blessed to sell way more than that. I have been blessed to sell way more than that. But that's just because our heart is pure, our mission is concise, and we want to help you elevate your world. I'm Derick Gant. Be your best, bring your best, leave nothing to chance. You know, I would be remiss if I didn't make sure that I gave you some vital information. If you or someone in your circle is struggling, please do not hesitate to dial or text 988. They will answer the phone. They will direct you to some help, to some services that will get you elevated and moving in the right direction. We all need help at some point. Don't hesitate to call.